right?
Yeah.
They're the
rough.
ones that it's like, okay, am I ready to introduce this now?
Yeah.
When should I bring this up? But when we listen with care, we just go in there saying, Holy Spirit, what do you have for me today? And listen to what he has to say. Then all of a sudden the conversation goes to great places.
Or even like if I go back to like my high school days, I would serve because I had mandatory volunteer hours for like my religion class or something. That wasn't serving with love because I was serving to just complete a certain thing. I think a lot of serving with love comes down to like, what is your heart behind it?
Well, you keep playing with your mic, so you're not doing much better.
Hey, I'm supposed to move it, right? Josh is loving it. He's stoked. So, anyways,
Next week on Deep Dive, I'm not sure who we're going to get.
tough goal.
Welcome to this episode of Deep Dive. This week we are continuing to talk about our blessed practices. We're going to look at the next two of the practices, eat together and serve with love. I've got special guests with me today, Pastor Josh and Pastor Abbey, and we're going to talk about what these practices look like in their life. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome to Deep Dive. I've got Pastor Josh with me and Pastor Abbey. These are our youth and young adults pastors, and we're going to talk about the blessed practices. You guys have been talking about them with the young adults on Monday nights, and so I thought it'd be great to hear some of your thoughts about what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of my thoughts came out last week, so I'm going to really lean to Abby and all of her wisdom this
There we
week.
go. Hey, but we're on to new letters.
That's
this
true.
Week.
That's
New
true.
letters.
New letters.
And
Here we
those
are.
letters are E and S.
E and S.
Abby, what are E? What's E stand
What are
for?
E? E is eat together.
All right, Josh.
Crush it.
That leaves you with the S.
The S, which is a trick question because there's two
There
S's.
is,
But
yeah.
this is the first one, serve with love.
Very good.
Serve with
Yeah.
love. That's right. That's what we're talking about this week. So let's talk about eating together, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody like to eat?
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Been known for that.
Nailed
All
it.
right. Abby,
Yes.
have you ever had someone invite you out for a meal and then, it helps you grow closer to Jesus? Has eating together been something that's been useful in your spiritual journey?
Oh, very much so. Like for me, it's a lot more of like coffee dates is like my go-to because it's just nice to like be like, hey, let's just go grab coffee. It feels low commitment. And that's really the best conversations happen because it's chill. You get to like just go out, have coffee. Like even when I started here at Stack, I met with all of my youth leaders here and was like, hey, let's grab a coffee together. Because it's just like, that's a good way to get to know someone. And it's more accessible than a meal sometimes. But I do love going for meals with people. I was a big fan of that one too, for many reasons.
And you said off camera that especially when they pay.
Yeah, like I'm open to it if anyone chooses to. Who am
If
I to
that
decline?
happens, right? Crazy.
Yeah. If anyone chooses to bless,
There we go. Hey.
there we
Well,
go.
I think, coffee is one of those key things, right? Because, today you go out for a restaurant to someone, you are going to have to mortgage your house.
Yeah.
And whereas coffee, you may have to just take out a loan, but at least it's
There
a
we
little
go.
bit cheaper
Yeah.
to do that, right?
And I feel like the thing with like my go-to with coffee is because it's so much like it feels less intimidating. Like a meal feels like much more formal.
Yeah.
And like just I know for my age group, it's much more of a formal thing where it's like, oh, I have time to slip in a coffee date here and there. Whereas like a meal feels much more commitment. Whereas like a meal after a coffee date feels like a next natural progression. But coffee's just easy.
Yeah.
And it's nice. And you have a little thing to hold, which is kind of nice because I'm a fiddly person.
Don't know
And so
what to
that
do with
way,
your hands.
I don't know what to do with my hands, so it's just cup, which is nice. It's handy.
It's great.
Josh, how about you? Do you have any stories of people taking you out for a coffee or Coke Pepsi for you?
Pepsi is king.
No,
I'd say
it's
on
not.
this podcast.
No.
Coke
Sponsored
Zero.
by Pepsi.
Not sponsored by Pepsi.
Jeez.
I mean, for me, this is kind of like my track of getting into youth ministry period was however many years ago now, my youth pastor taking me out for a burger and food and blessing me in that way. And, in all my kind of moments of crisis that I mentioned some of last week on Deep Dive, like my youth pastor was there to say, hey, let's connect over some food. And so we had a lot of conversations at Wendy's where we'd eat together and he'd bless me and just he'd listen with care as part of that, right? And
Cool.
yeah.
My youth pastor used to take me to a place called Fuddruckers in Regina. It's a burger place. It's a burger place.
Never heard of that.
There's lots of them. Google it. You can find them in the States. There's not that many in Canada anymore. But Dan DeGarris, who was my youth pastor, and he got me through junior high and senior high, at least monthly, trips to Fuddruckers for lunch, picking me up at school and then dropping me back off in time for class. And that actually helped me get to where I am in my relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so eating together it just creates space, right?
Yeah.
It's not about the food. It's not about even the coffee.
Yeah.
It's not about the burger, even though Fuddruckers has great burgers. So
heard it here.
just saying, it's one of my favorite burger joints. When I go back to Regina, that's where I have to go.
Fuddruckers.
And there's one in Saskatoon too. So you don't have to go quite as far. And we'll get sponsorship for that, right, Josh? Later on, we'll get that on the okay.
Perfect.
But
One in Regina. That's it. Saskatchewan, Regina. It's the only one now.
in Canada, that's right. We are unique. Anyways.
Go us.
You don't have to spend a lot of money to eat together or to drink together, right? Like it can be as simple as a glass of lemonade on your back deck.
Yeah.
It's more just having that space in your life, and eating together says, hey, we all have to eat, or hey, why don't you come over for a beverage and we can sit out on the back deck and just begin to talk and process life. One of the points when Bob talked about this was that eating together creates space for the kingdom of heaven to come. And I just love that sense, right? Have you ever seen the kingdom of heaven come when you're out for coffee or you're out for a burger with somebody?
Yeah. Like, I think one of the primary people that my husband and I are really focusing on trying to bless, and like, not gonna lie, it's been a roller coaster of trickiness because it's our literal neighbor who's right beside us. And like, we've had some rocky moments with this neighbor, but we're like, man, we really want to lean in and bless this person. So we've had them come over for just like on the back deck saying, hey, we're just going to have a little barbecue. We have opportunities. And we say, hey, like, we just want to lean into this. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it opened doors for conversation where like that never would have happened before of us just talking from our decks to each other. Because it's just that intentional space where I'm like, wow, like, I didn't really want to have them over for a barbecue or for a drink. Like, that wasn't what I was hoping for. Cause I'm like, man, that's like an hour or two of my time when I could be doing this or that, but it opened doors for conversation and we get to grow into a spot of a healthier relationship for that neighbor. And then that leads us into a spot of being like, hey, like, what is Jesus? And like, you get to go into that conversation in a way that door wouldn't have been open unless we had that intentional time together, which is cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think on my end, like I think I used to live these eat-togethers with agenda in mind of, hey, these are the questions I'm going to come with, or these are the talking points I want to hit in that time together. And the kingdom sometimes came in those moments, but not as frequently as just saying, okay, God, you have this actually. I don't need to overthink in my mind, like, okay, we're going to talk about this and then this and then this. And yeah, like what you're saying, Abby, like with our neighbor, like to have her and her kids over for supper and to just be able to sit and listen and hear story is significant, right?
Yeah.
And not some agenda of, well, we're going to talk about this and this and this, but just, Jesus, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And how God's showing up in those spaces has been significant. It's been awesome.
It's about combining that L, right? Listen with care with that eat together. And it's because I found when I have those agendas, man, those are the worst meals, right? They're the
rough.
ones that it's like, okay, am I ready to introduce this now?
Yeah.
When should I bring this up? But when we listen with care, we just go in there saying, Holy Spirit, what do you have for me today? And listen to what he has to say. Then all of a sudden the conversation goes to great places.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's move on to the S, the first of the S's, serve with love. So tell me, neither of you can answer this. Serving with love. Is this the same as the serving that we normally do? Like serving at church, serving at the food bank, serving at your kids' class in school? Like, is this different, or are we talking about the same sort of serving?
I think before we answer the question, I think both Abby and I thought you said neither of you can
I was
answer
like,
this.
oh, I was like, who's
I said
going to answer?
either of you can answer it.
I know. I was like, whoa.
But yeah, is that the same sort of serving, doing all these different things? Abby, thoughts?
That was a nice toss at me. I think it's a lot of the heart posture behind it. 'Cause I know for myself speaking, there's a lot of times where like, or even like if I go back to like my high school days, I would serve because I had mandatory volunteer hours for like my religion class or something. That wasn't serving with love because I was serving to just complete a certain thing. Yeah. I think a lot of serving with love comes down to like, what is your heart behind it? Because like you can serve a lot of places and it's not serving with love. It will seem loving because you're doing a good task, but it's not actually serving with love. Whereas serving with love is being intentional, saying, hey, like I want to be able to bless you. And that could be like, you know, praying with someone. That can be serving with love, or that can be saying, hey, I know you need a meal. And that can be intentional. Like it can be so many different ways, but it all kind of leans back to where your heart is in trying to serve that way is how I
no, that's
kind
good.
of view that.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think, you know, totally agree with what Abby's saying. And sometimes I think it's not, right? Like the three kind of markers I talked about on that particular Sunday where we talked about serve with love. Man, Abby's just dismembering this set.
Oh,
Well, you keep playing with your mic, so you're not doing much better.
Hey, I'm supposed to move it, right? Josh is loving it. He's stoked. So, anyways,
Next week on Deep Dive, I'm not sure who we're going to get.
tough goal. To serve with love is to serve in proximity. So there is this like real proximity that's happening, but to serve personally. And so I broke this down a little bit in the sermon in the context of for our youth leaders. Like they are serving in proximity with around 100 students every week. But to serve personally looks like this going off to the side and interacting in a more one-on-one setting in the midst of the crowd, right? Or eating together even. So to serve proximity, serve with love is to serve personally and to serve powerfully, right? So, you know, that I think that serving with love too comes through Holy Spirit presence in our own lives and empowerment and not our own doing and living. Where I think a lot of these things we can do within our own power and capacity. But I think to serve with love is to serve with that Holy Spirit empowerment in a real way.
Yeah, having that serving with love is really about walking around. We talked about listening to the Spirit when we're eating with somebody, but actually it's walking around every day and looking for those opportunities to serve. And some of them may be those permanent serving aspects, right? When I talked about person of peace or finding your Frank recently. Frank. Got him. That was very good unison, you guys.
Well done.
You practiced that, didn't you? But when I talked about that, I talked about there is this permanence and there is this passing, right? And so sometimes there's this permanent serving that we can do, and it is all about the heart posture. But then there's those passing things as well, right? If we're, you look at Jesus's life, and some people he served just in passing, right? Like he healed a woman, and then said, go and sin no more, right? Yeah. And healed men doing the same thing. And then other people he spent years with, just serving and loving them, Peter and James and John, lots of people in that thing. So I think there's this both aspect that we walk through the life and the permanent relationships we have and say, how can I serve these people that I have permanent relationship with? And then what am I, as I'm going around, if I'm at the gas station, I was at Friesen Brothers the other day, and this mom was trying to wrangle two kids getting into the car, plus keep her cart from rolling into the middle of the parking lot, right? Yeah. So I went over and I helped her with a cart, right? And when she was done with it, I said, here, let me take it back and put it away. That's just passing, right? It's just saying, how can I express the love of Jesus in everything I do, both in passing and the permanent relationships that I have? So equally important in all of those. So what does serving with love look like in your life?
I'd say for me, if we're looping back to be the beginning of our blessed practices, like I'm really trying to lean in and be intentional with prayer, saying, Jesus, like, give me your eyes to see the people that I can be serving, like every moment of the day. Because a lot of times I approach it as like, okay, like I need to like find, this really big task, and then that'll be like a really good thing. But it's like you said, like with someone with a shopping cart, like that's such a small thing, but you have no idea how that made their day. And so like for me, one area I'm really trying to dig deep in right now is my neighborhood. Like we live in a pretty rough neighborhood. And so like there's a lot of break-ins in our neighborhood. There's a lot of things that get like stolen out of the backyard. So like our neighborhood, we have like this group chat just trying to like, hey, like seeing this going on, how can we do this? And then there's a block party coming up.
Cool.
And it's like a really cool opportunity because it's not the Christians on the street who organize this block party. Whoa. That scared me. But like, it's one of those things where I was like, oh man, like that was a really cool opportunity to serve with love that the people who weren't the Christians on the street did that. But then there's me, and then there's another pastor on the street that were saying, hey, like, okay, let's lean in here. Like, let's go all in and say, hey, yeah, we want to help cover food. We want to do what we can, because these are ways that we can intentionally serve with love. And so that means there's our friends that live across the street that we've gotten to know through living there. We have a little porch swing that they've always tried to keep their kids off our front porch swing. And we're like, no, we're like, go for it. Like, that's just a tiny thing of saying, no, like, our porch is always open. Your kids can swing on our porch, can swing as much as they want. Like, it's a small thing, but it's an opportunity to say, hey, like, here, this is something that might make a difference for you. That you don't have to wrangle your kids near our house because we're okay with that. We're okay. Cool. So there's those ways where I feel like I miss the mark sometimes with serving with love, because I'll be so intentional of what I think it looks like that I'll let an opportunity pass right by me. And then I'll see that after. I'm like, oh, I could have done that. Why wasn't I on the block party team? But then, it's in front of me now. So what can I do to serve in it now that it's right here?
Very cool.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. In my world, particularly right now, it's been trying to live out what I preached a couple weeks ago of looking at my blessed five in particular and asking Jesus, what's their point of need?
Yeah.
Where I can serve with love. And I think, not dissimilar to you, Abbey, in some of that, I can miss the like, man, here's just a simple thing that would still be impactful. Yeah. But really it's been spending time with Jesus, that beginning with prayer of Jesus, what's the point of need to serve these five well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys, for joining me today on the Deep Dive podcast. And it's been great having you.
And that's it.
Until next week, we'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.